this is when we wonder if we've come live onto LinkedIn. Hello, everyone. Maybe we're at LinkedIn, maybe we're not. But we're here celebrating Reboot Hiring again. Shameless plug with this bright yellow cover and its wonderful contents. It's popping up all around the world. It's very exciting. And I'm joined today by the wonderful Steve Gard, who really should be asleep, shouldn't you? Is it like 9:10 or something for you?
It's
Quite late.
it's 9:10. It's about an hour after my bedtime, but it's okay.
Gosh.
I'm happy.
So you mightn't make any sense for the next 40 minutes or so.
Well, it don't usually make much sense. So, yeah, it could be any time of the day.
Well, I'm looking forward to this, though, because we're going to have a conversation around candidate experience and whether it actually matters, because we think it matters, but managers don't think it matters. And then, like the cost implications, which you believe you can calculate. Yeah. So I'm quite excited about that, which is cool. But give us your career in a snapshot. How did you end up in the world of recruitment? Even
I did an HR degree.
Wow.
I'm actually one of the few that wanted to do recruitment because the rest of my HR degree bored me.
Sorry, Banjo just jumped up on my desk and missed.
Actually, can I just explain why I've got like a sofa stacked up here?
No.
All right.
Go on. Why have you got a stack of sofas?
I've got a sofa stacked up here because we got flooded at Christmas and we still haven't had the work done. So all downstairs is upstairs, and that's what's it. So
every time I see the YER, Maya, I suddenly feel like I'm back in Australia.
I love Maya,
yeah, it's making me reminiscent every time you just slide enough that I see the. It's really shocking that work's taken so long. Is it just because so many were flooded, or just?
I think there's So I think there's so many that flooded, and we've been pretty resilient against our insurer that was playing tough with us. So, so actually, the very first day of renovations was today. So that's 268 days in, and the renovation started today.
That's really unacceptable, isn't it? So you've gone through most of winter without part of your house. Wow, that's not good.
Yeah, the whole downstairs is gutted. We're lucky we've got a nice sort of outside undercovered area, and because we live in North Queensland, winter is like summer over there.
Eventually you will acclimatise. Eventually you'll find you have to put on a fleece. I've seen Queenslanders.
I went to Melbourne last week, and I got off the plane and I looked like a typical North Queenslander with my shorts and my t-shirt and my thongs, flip-flops for those.
Flip-flops.
So I've sort of acclimatized. Anyway, so so I did a
you did a HR degree.
Degree, went into recruiting. I wanted to go into recruiting actually. And I did 9 years or so in agency, thinking that was recruiting. It is to some extent, but it's mainly sales. I was terrible at sales. I don't know how I lasted 9 years.
Same. Oh my God, dreadful. I hate selling. Still hate selling. I much prefer to, like, once the door's a little bit open, I can network out and do that, but I'm really bad at the getting the foot in the door.
It's the only job that I've ever been fired from was a sales job and recruiting. And now I've got a platform that I'm trying to sell, which is a bit of a problem.
Yeah, but it's a very good platform. And there's nothing like it. And we'll give it a shameless plug later with my referral link.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. I did send you that, didn't
I? Yeah, totally. It's everywhere. I've been talking about it because I think it's really cool. So So what did you do after you left agency? Did you spend time in-house? Have you worked in talent acquisition?
Yeah. So I wanted to go in-house. I purposely wanted to go in-house. And it was that time back in the mid-90s, mid to late 90s, where it was really difficult to go from agency in-house. It was a really difficult move. Anyway, I did it. My first job was with Rent a Kill. I was doing sales recruitment for them, and did a couple of different roles, and the real sort of milestone, pivotal role for me and job was when I moved to BT, British Telecom.
Yeah.
So I was looking after their management consulting recruitment in their global services function, and then
that would have been way more pleasant than recruiting salespeople. Recruiting salespeople is tough. Oof.
It was good. It was management consultants, like business transformation consultants, which is really interesting because BT's not really known. So we were trying to hire people from Deloitte and all these guys, Anyway, and then the global financial crisis came, and I don't know if you remember, BT announced that they were going to be stopping their graduate program, and it was a bit of a PR disaster, really. And then a year later, they went, "Oh, we want to go back into that. Steve, can you pick it up and fix it all?" And that was a great job. Loved it. Very awkward going to some of these universities and going, "Hey, we didn't want your grads last year, but we do now." Get to the back of the queue, Gard. It was and then I moved to the Middle East, actually. So I moved to Dubai and lived there for 6 years, and I headed recruitment for a big luxury retailer out there, big organization out there, who didn't really have a recruitment function as such, so it was a bit of a setup. And then moved to AIG, still in Dubai, but managing Middle East, Africa, and India. And then decided to come to Australia and worked for.
And have you worked in TA in Australia as well?
Yeah. So I did a 2-year stint with Good Start Early Learning. So it's the biggest not-for-profit organization over here, and it's the biggest childcare operator. So there's 500-600 centers across the country.
Hearing you talk about all these different industries, and so often you see, well, we need a TA pro who's worked in our industry. I mean, I think talent acquisition is talent acquisition. It helps. Don't get me wrong. It helps to have the industry knowledge, but it's not a deal breaker. You can learn in the same way you do every time you've got a new role. You ask questions and you learn.
Yeah. I mean, I've never asked for any of my team, wherever I've been, that they've got to have industry experience. But I segued into the Australian. Yeah, it does. Yeah, I segued into that conversation, that bit about Australia, the move, a little bit too easy. But actually, it was really hard. When I first got here, people were saying you don't have Australia experience. I went for so many interviews and spoke to so many agents, said we can't help you. You don't have Australian experience. It's like, well, I've been managing 12 countries in my last role, and I haven't been to 75% of them. Why do I need Australia experience? Anyway, somebody took a chance.
Why do you need Australia experience? Other than just to know where all the cities are and that people won't move states necessarily, like.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird. There's a few people I've spoken to that had the same thing. It was the hardest bit, actually. Anyway, so I did that for 2 years, and then.
I'm sorry, my lot are a weird lot. It's like we swapped countries, haven't we?
Well, I'm Australian now, so I
have the Aussie Brit passport, but
Yeah, I've got a passport, but I won't support them in the cricket. That's for sure.
No, I absolutely. There is that. There's a line.
Yeah.
So how did you, or what? So actually, let's just talk about candidate experience for a minute. So you and you've had extensive TA. I have worked in houses, lesser, but obviously I've been working with talent acquisition teams around the world, and I know this is the problem. But it's not a problem that managers necessarily care about, because they don't really get how it impacts them. But why does it matter? Like, does it matter? Does it? I mean, I genuinely think it matters for their mental health. I feel sorry for anybody stuck in a hiring process. But for managers,
I mean, I think part of the issue is with managers not really understanding about candidate experiences is we as TA haven't been giving them the right message and the right data, and I think it's often hiring managers will think, well, it's not a privilege, but I've certainly come across hiring managers that say it's a privilege to come and work in my team.
I have
to pick. I have the choice.
This still exists. there's still this
Yeah.
weird attitude of like that. I mean, to me, and God, anyone who heard me speak has heard this, that the internet was the thing that was the game changer. Because, I mean, if candidate experience didn't matter because there was no transparency. You couldn't write what you thought on the internet. But the fact that people can see the other jobs, that's it. Companies lost power. It doesn't matter if right now there are a surplus of job seekers. They still have choice. They don't have to come and work at your company. They can
100%.
still, you know, some of them would probably rather do Uber Eats than come and work at some of these companies the way they're treated in the hiring process.
So I've got a bit of a my answer to that question is generally, because it's such a big, the candidate experience is, if you really start to peel it back, it's a massive subject because it covers everything. But for me, it trumps everything we do in recruiting, right? So it doesn't matter if you have got a brilliant attraction strategy. It doesn't matter if you have a really in-depth assessment methodology. It doesn't matter if the hiring manager's a rock star. I hate that terminology, but you know what I mean? If the candidate hasn't enjoyed it, they are
putting my dog down on the floor. Sorry. Bless him. He's getting a bit old and he jumps up on my desk and misses, and then he wants to get off, but I have to lift him down. Sorry. Am I live on LinkedIn? Yes, but never mind. He doesn't know that. Sorry, but if the rock star hiring manager gives them a bad time.
Yeah, well, if they don't like any part of the process, if they don't enjoy it, they're not joining you anyway. Even if you do pick them, they're not going, and they're definitely not going into your talent pool. Although you think they're going into your talent pool, they're going into a database of disgruntled people.
They probably do what I do is I just block the email addresses. I don't actually unsubscribe. I just block the email address so that I don't get them. They probably do that as well. Probably like me.
So for me, at that base level, it trumps everything we do, I think. And you know, there's lots of data to show that actually it's more than just the ability to hire who you want. It's also impacts how they onboard. It impacts performance. There's some really good studies over here. Actually, BHP did one last year that show that it has a huge impact on retention, on belonging. So but I think the challenge is why hiring managers don't get it is because we've really lacked. A lot of organizations lack the data. Candidate experience measurement is often seen as a nice to have and is not done very often because it's clunky, consuming. We never get to it because we're busy doing other stuff.
Well, and I think after what TA's been through in the 2020s, I'm not surprised. But I actually, sorry, I know there's whole books called this, and I know that there's the Candies, and I know there's you, but the words, even candidate experience, like what's a candidate? You know, do managers even know? I mean, to them, it's an applicant or an interviewee. It's like, what's a candidate? It's a new employee, and we're using this random word that is an industry term, and I don't even think we explain really well enough. Like, what is it? Like, what is a candidate? What does the experience? Why does their experience matter? I think it's beyond the data. I think they need to use that data for sure to tell the story and paint the picture of why it matters. But I just think sometimes we just forget it's a human being that we're treating badly. You know,
totally agree.
I think that the way we blanket terms so many different parts of the hiring process with that one word is kind of crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it really should be. It really should form part of the organization's people experience strategy, and it should just be people. And then you have segments of, well, these are our customers, these are our suppliers, you know, etc. etc.
Is there a direct? Is that where your tool comes in and can directly link? Is it just for like the retail side, so bad people experience through the hiring process, candidate experience? Does that directly affect? Because I know there's the Virgin Media case study. Apparently, it's like the only one on the planet until you came along that tracked back the sales or the lost sales. Those people won't be customers. Is that
that's really where? So that's really where it came. So Benchmarks has been going 2.5 years, and we've just brought in this dollar, pound, euro measurement. So essentially what it does, it allows you to benchmark your candidate experience against other employers. You don't see who those employers are, but you can see, you can see when I'm hiring an accountant, how does it compare to others hiring accountants? So you've got your score, you've got benchmark. But so that data was quite useful to be able to convince hiring managers to say, hey, we need to be faster, or we need to be more professional in interviews, because other accountants going for interviews are saying this, and this is the benchmark, and we're a little bit below. So that's really helping educate the hiring managers. But there was something for me missing in terms of what's the language they want to hear? What's the language that really resonates? What's going to get that, that seat at the table data that we always talk about? And the Virgin Media one just kept on coming up, and it was just, why have we not got another one of these? It's the one that
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's going to be what, 8 years old, if not more. What are we in?
Yeah, like 2017, I think. But it's the one that always comes up. Great piece of work, brilliant. Absolutely. But it gets mentioned to me weekly. So now we build it into our platform where, yes, if you're sort of a B2C employer of some kind, so retailer, insurance, airline, whatever it might be, we can now measure the dollar impact of customers coming in who are candidates. They're carrying X amount of revenue with them, which TAs suddenly become joint custodians of. Yeah. Do we return that revenue back, or do we potentially put it at risk? And then we've got the flip side of that, which is we had a customer do this already, which is really cool, is that you can say these people weren't customers. We've delivered a really good candidate experience right at the top end. And now we've created brand advocacy. We've created X pounds worth of potential revenue this month through really perception.
People have really long memories as well. Like you can have a bad experience with a company 15, 20 years ago, and that would stop you working for them. Like people will, or buying from them. Like there's people hold grudges. I mean, I certainly don't like my business banking manager, and absolutely wouldn't work for that company. So I don't know why I still bank with them, to be fair. I keep trying to change, and then it's too much hard work. But it's really off-putting. The whole experience was bad. And you just think,
well, the Virgin Media one's a typical example, right? So what was it? 5.5 million US. I'm talking US dollars. So 5.5 million US dollars it was costing them every year of people walking out of the process and cancelling contracts. I mean, it's so easy to do. If you think about your internet, your phone, your mobile, your insurance, changing is so much easier to do now. So it's really interesting.
And that again goes back to that internet, doesn't it? That internet that they seem to forget gives people choice, full stop. So they don't have to work for you. I mean, it's something like 5 billion people on the internet. It's an extraordinary number of people, and therefore data and jobs to be seen.
Yeah. But it's really interesting because I wanted to sort of test this a little bit to see, are we talking the right language? So I generally I'm always sort of reaching out to CFOs and CEOs because I really want to talk about candidate experience at that level. Yeah. So I'm doing sort of LinkedIn requests. Hey, I talk about candidate experience, blah, blah, blah. And I'll probably get 1 in 25, maybe 1 in 30 connect with me.
I then started to use the site.
Well, I don't know. They do because that's changed.
Occasionally.
Well, I started to message saying, "Hey, we've done some analysis, and we can see that."
Oh, okay. You changed your wording. Okay.
Yeah, we've seen that a retailer here is putting $365 million a year in revenue at risk when they recruit people, and would you like to see more? And suddenly CFOs were like, and so I had CEOs and CFOs of some of the major companies here and some in the UK as well start to connect with me. So I think this is the language that they want to hear. We've got it's got a language that resonates with.
It's the shameless plug. That's how I wrote this. So it's such a shame that your tool wasn't out right as I was writing this. But the when I'm talking about like it's not a cost center, stop considering that the people that recruit your people is a cost center function. Okay, yes, it is on a spreadsheet, whatever. But it's like that. But it's also getting them to understand that, but also recruiters need to speak the language of the business. I hired Steve, and Steve created this tool, and it has saved us or created us this much revenue. And it's like backing up, I did this, I brought that person in, that's what, so don't treat me like I'm just an admin function. But this is some of we don't speak business speak. They don't, I've renamed it the recruitment alignment meeting in this book, because I just think it'd be nicer if they aligned equally. But, they don't push back and sort of explain how the manager's going to save money and how it's going to benefit their projects and benefit their team. They don't talk the business language. They're like, no, well, I'm not going to be able to find that person. And it's like, the manager doesn't care. The manager just wants to know that their time and hassle saved.
Yeah, I think the worst metrics we talk about are two of the most popular: cost per hire and time to hire.
What a ridiculous metric. Why do we measure that?
Why would you want to talk about costs? What you want to talk about is the impact of not hiring on time. To the hiring manager, because that makes which is different. So, and that's a pound dollar figure. It could be
actually. Let's explain why it's different, because we know that. But say the statistic again. It's gone out of my head. It's late for you, and it's Monday morning. No, what did you call it? The cost for a delayed hire. Late hire.
Yeah, the cost of not hiring on time.
Not hiring on time. And that will be, there'll be a failed project or a client deliverable and that's because they haven't started the process correctly and worked it backwards as well.
Yeah. So here's an example. When I was in childcare, we were hiring lots of early childhood teachers. And
pretty set in stone start date.
Yeah. And if we didn't have a teacher in that center, the kindergarten room couldn't open. You weren't allowed to open it. So there's not just a dollar impact of that. There's actually a social issue of children not being educated as well. So putting numbers around that is really, really important, rather than just saying, oh, our time to hire was 40 days. I mean, what does that mean?
Yeah. Do you know, it's really funny, because I have some favorite questions that they're probably in the Robot Proof Recruiter. They'll have been crowdsourced from, my favorite people like Steve Levy. But things like, what's the cost to the bottom line if this role stays open? Or is there a project that's relying on this person? Or, what's just understanding the impact of not filling that role. And recruiters are quite scared of that question, because for some reason they take it as, well, I'm going to fail and I'm not going to fill it. It's like, no, you find out the answer to that, and then you can chase your hiring manager, because you're like, well, you said to me it's 10K a day and you're not coming back to me. So there's 20K you've just wasted in 2 days. Like, what are you doing? Oh. It's like, you got to find the pain point, the cost point.
It's what talk about what matters to them. What's their KPIs resting on in terms of what this person that you're bringing on board is going to deliver. But I think,
and there'll be promotions and all sorts of things on the line for them sometimes. It could be, if we get this in, we deliver this over the line. Oh, I'm going to get that promotion I've been trying to get, and that means my child can go to private school or whatever. I could get another dog in my case. We're like, there's always. I don't know why we're so scared of these questions, but. And I look at how TA has been treated in the 2020s, and I'm kind of like, God, they're so overloaded. I'm not surprised. They're scared of another question. It's like, oh God, am I going to keep my job? Who knows?
That's the thing. It's often having the capacity to be able to have these sort of conversations and have that preparation before. I mean, I've been in roles before. It's just the recruiters are just so crammed in terms of their time and their capacity to do anything that hiring manager experience is impacted. Candidate experience is definitely impacted. So it's your sort of your tech stack, it's your processes that all impact all of this. You can't do anything unless you release a few valves.
Exactly. And so much of my motivation behind writing Reboot Hiring was that exactly what you just said. They're so So I've just sort of slightly off topic, and I'll come back to the motivation. But I did years ago. It's probably like 8 years ago. I delivered a webinar on social sourcing back when I was doing all that sort of stuff. And this woman said at the end, this big TA director, my team don't have time for that. They're maxed out. And she was proud they were maxed out. And I was just going, oh my God, they don't have time to learn to source because you've maxed them out that much. That's insane. Like that's the future. You know, people are going to get sick of recruiter responses and start hiding. And so you're going to have to get better at sourcing. Anyway, so much of the motivation of writing Reboot Hiring was because the teams are overloaded, and it's ridiculous. It's self-sabotage. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy of you will not be able to hire in the future because the market will swing back. And they're the people that recruit your people. So I've made the case. There's 2 whole chapters explaining what TA is and all the myths and all the BS, and just stop it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just talking about that, but I mean, through COVID, and some have been going through it now. Companies that lay off their recruiters, so many companies got that wrong during COVID, where they couldn't build quick enough. And for me, recruiting isn't just the hiring bit. There's so much more that comes before that a team of recruiters could be doing in preparation for when that company does.
Absolutely. I mean, they could have been doing all the market mapping, but they could have been out there, you know, teaching the sales teams how to source and find more information about customers. They could have been working with marketing. They could have been doing so much stuff. I mean, I understand why it happened in 2020, but the fact they then overhired and then laid off again. So we did it earlier because I was in Australia speaking at ATC in November 2022, and you were still hiring like mad. And then it was like it's like you hit, as in the country hit, about 7 or 8 months later. So it was about a year after us. But all of that, with the overhiring, then we've had overfiring. So we've had teams laid off again. Or if they've been rehired, it's been very strategic and not necessarily the right people are leading. There's interesting stuff going on. But you were going to say another metric. So we have the cost of a late hire or a delayed hire, as opposed to measuring time to hire. And there was the second one you were going to say. It was very important. We both like.
What's
You've just been on holiday. You're probably struggling to get your brain back into gear. I saw those beach photos.
Oh, it was only a day and a bit.
Oh, really?
It wasn't long. Yeah, it wasn't long.
Do you know, when we go on about all these algorithms, the one I'd really like is the one within Meta that knows that if I see the photos on Instagram, I don't also need to see them on Threads and Facebook. It's getting really annoying. It's like, I'd like to see other people's stuff. Like, surely they could work out that I've just seen it there. And anyway, so hence I thought you were on holiday because I saw it everywhere. I saw your knees and water.
While I tried to think of that stat, but I think one of the other things that we need to, I think TA need to be a bit more bold in what we talk about as well. So, you know, I had a conversation with someone who used to report to me, but was then managing a TA function, and they were saying,
I am listening. I'm just seeing if anyone's watching on LinkedIn, and I should have responded to them. There are beautiful tall people. Sorry, I'm not responding to comments over there.
They were saying, how do I get cut through with the CEO, the HRD? They see us as a real transactional organization. What can I say? I said, talk their language. And I said, one of the really simple things is work out exactly how many people you hired last year, or they hired last year. Work out what the salaries were of that, and then go to them and say, last year you asked this function to invest X amount of salary in new people. That changes the conversation. So you start to go, you asked us to invest X amount of salary in new people. You gave that as our responsibility.
Well, it's X amount of revenue to invest in that
revenue.
salary.
It's revenue. Yeah, it's revenue as well. So, you know, 15 million pounds, dollars. You asked us to
you
find
entrusted us.
You entrusted us with that.
Oh, I'm loving these words. Yeah.
Can I have another 150 grand for a new background check system, whatever it might be? It just changes. It just changes the dynamic. When you start to think about it slightly differently.
Oh, I like that. I like that. But also in that conversation was you can also go when you know your number of hires, and as a department, we also saved.
Yeah.
And then you can go in because you can just do blanket 20% of the basic salary across the board, get a figure. You know, they're not going to ask you how you calculated it. So
some of our customers on Benchmarks, they've actually had conversations with marketing where they've gone, we've had people walk into the recruitment process with a brand perception of X, and they've walked out, unsuccessful candidates with a better brand perception than they walked in with.
Ooh.
B2C customers, right? B2C employers. So they've said, we're helping you build brand. Can we have some of your marketing budget to do more of that, please?
Oh, I like that as well. That's clever. That's B2C. Do you have any B2B examples? That must happen.
B2B's a bit,
because B2B is still people. It's still people.
Well, yeah, B2B. We're trying to work out a way how to put a dollar figure on that. It's a little bit trickier, but we're working.
People, isn't it? It's still.
We're still people. Yeah. You can still measure candidate experience and benchmark it. You can still see how you're treating them.
It's just harder.
We just don't get landed on a dollar amount of what that actually means. So answers on a postcard if you know it, and you get a good solution. I'll give you a free 12-month subscription to Benchmarks if you can ask that.
Oh, there's a question. Are those 4 people still alive? How interesting. Can we talk briefly about the Circle Back initiative? How does that differ? So, because Benchmarks is like a tool, right?
Yeah, so Benchmarks is a tool, and Benchmarks came off the back of Circle Back. So
are you still doing that?
Yeah. So I'll take it back a little bit to how it all came about. So I left my early learning job because I wanted to go out and do some more transformation. The transformation was coming to an end. The last 3 gigs have been transformation work, but I didn't really want to do it in a perm job, so I went out on my own. Brilliant timing. April 2019. I had a couple of gigs, and then obviously COVID hit, and nobody wanted talent acquisition strategy work, so that all sort of died a death fairly quickly.
It was an interesting year, wasn't it? Do you think we all had PTSD? I remember coming into that year having the biggest pipeline of work I'd had to date, and the whole lot went. The whole lot.
I lost 4 contracts in 2 days that were pretty much signed. Anyway,
it was depressing, wasn't it? How did we get through? Oh, that's right. We're Gen X. We're fine. Well, we did this before.
So I started applying for jobs.
The
very few that were around, and I wasn't hearing back. And then I started doing some volunteering work. There was a group here called Jobs for Australia, which was
basically amazing.
A group of TA and HR folk that had lost work, and we had time, and we said, well, there's thousands of people being made redundant. Why don't we sort of give them one-to-one coaching? So that's what we were doing. So we'd have 3 or 4 calls with each person individually, and it was on those second calls and third calls you started to really see the stress and anxiety people were going through. So we'd be doing sort of helping them with their searches and doing CV reviews and mock interviews, but you could see the mental health impact of A, being made redundant, and then B, being ghosted, felt ignored. So they were saying, Steve, I'm applying for jobs, I'm not hearing back. I'm going for interviews, I'm not hearing back. I've been made redundant, and now I feel like I'm ignored.
I'm going to interviews and not hearing back. So yeah, so you've got the I was made redundant, makes the person feel redundant, not the role. We all know apparently it's the role, but and then they don't hear back after interviews. I mean, I find it disgusting that applicants don't hear back, to be fair, because they get down and depressed off that. But interviewees, there is one. I've had one in my entire career recruiting that I didn't go back to after an interview. I missed it and I still feel bad about it. And I know exactly who it is. She probably is long forgotten. I remember I didn't go back to her. I don't know how recruiters can do that and just be okay with it. I'm just so not okay with it. I can't go back and tell her now.
And the impact of that, you know, and it was really impactful. And actually, I just was sitting there going, I can't justify why this is happening, and I can't really think why would people want to do that. Why would a brand want to be seen to be doing that? I mean, if you
the people, why don't they want to give closure to other people? Like, we all know what it feels like. Everybody knows what it feels like when someone doesn't get back to us. Like, what? It's crazy. But you know what I found really sad? And I get how you ended up with the Circle Back initiative from that. But the fact is, we've had another round of layoffs because then there was overhiring and overfiring again. And still they're doing it. And I'm just like, there's technology that can do, what do they call it? Disposition candidates. Like, anyway, that's what drove you to create the Circle Back initiative.
Well, because I thought, well, you know, maybe, I mean, I've got some time on my hands. Maybe I should try and do something about it. And my view was, there's no point going on to LinkedIn and whinging and whining about bad companies doing the wrong thing, because you're never going to encourage change. So why don't we showcase the companies that do the right thing?
Like it.
And then hopefully that will encourage others to go, well, if they're doing it, we should be doing it. And why aren't we doing it? So we basically asked them to sign up to 6 standards, all about responding. So, you know, and job ads not saying certain wording and all that sort of stuff. We do mystery applications before they join. So we make sure that we get rejected, and then we do one at the end of each year. And those that pass that then get invited onto the following year. So we run it every calendar year.
That's clever.
And I honestly thought it would just be a 2020 project, and we might get 30 companies. We're 2024, and we've got over 300. Australia and New Zealand have got by far the most. UK's it's got some. US has got some as well. We need a lot more outside of Australia and New Zealand. And it's free to get involved.
I don't know whether it's less alone or they're just so overwhelmed here. I mean, don't forget we have Brexit on top of it, so it's an interesting place to be, and the Tories, and it's been fun. I'm really glad most of my income comes in from Europe and the US, not the UK. Let's put it that way. If I had to rely on the UK, I would be depressed. It's so I'm not. Sadly, I'm not surprised. Sorry if I just offended anybody who's listening. Who I think most Brits get it, though.
So, it's been a tough few years for sure.
But I love that you're getting. I do love that, though. How positive that is, that 300 companies, because it's individuals in those 300 companies, isn't it? As well, have said, no, let's commit to this.
Let's commit to it. Let's do it.
Are you able to see if there's a mental health improvement of the applicants coming through that company? Because maybe that's where it needs to link with your benchmarks.
So benchmarks is not linked to Circle Back. They're two separate things. So we've got 50% of the companies on benchmarks are probably Circle Back, and 50% aren't. So you can start to measure how, the impact of candidate experience through your. I mean, it's not. Circle Back isn't, what we're asking to do isn't rocket science. It's simply just get back to everyone.
It's not.
It's not hard. But what you can see through your, and it's not just benchmarks, even if you did your own surveys, if you're doing the right thing and you've got the right ethics around that, generally you'll find that will fall through to other parts of your candidate experience and your candidate experience scores.
I think there's a bit of a I found this when I was writing the second edition of the Robot Proof Recruiter. I saw a spreadsheet that someone shared, and she wrote ghosted next to every time she applied and didn't hear back. Whereas I think recruiters tend to think, well, I only need to go back to people that have interviewed. It's like, no, you need to close off everybody. And most of them have some form of an ATS to do that. There's even free ones, for goodness sake. Or you just create an email signature that you use. But what I hear, which really does my head in, is that there'll be one job seeker in 100 who kicks off about it, and therefore they don't go back to anybody because they don't want to. That job seekers negative. They tell me off. It's like, no, job seekers are frustrated and they're down and they're depressed and they're just, God, that feeling of I could get evicted from my home. So yes, occasionally one of them is going to feel frustrated, and you're just professional in your reply back. You don't.
Yeah, we've all had it, and we, we've all missed. I've missed candidates where I've, and it's, we're all human, and it's not, it's not just, we're not just thinking about the candidates' mental health here. It's also the recruiters, right? So what we're trying to encourage is recruitment functions to be more efficient, and so they've got that capacity again to get back to everyone. We do say it's,
and actually, it's really interesting. So you're using technology to create data that can be used to create more in the pot for TA kind of thing, but to persuade managers of the value of the function. You're not actually, it's not necessarily like an efficiency tool, because I think the last thing TA needs is another efficiency tool. I mean, hence this is, to say the key to managers and leaders saving time, money, and hassle. And it is about communication and collaboration. You're talking about communicating with the data that your tool creates for them to persuade and to show what an incredibly professional function it can be and how important it is.
It's actually
so we're both focused on the one area of this persuasion piece of, could you just cut some slack to your TA team and you will see the whole thing transform. Everything will transform. It's a false economy. They almost need to give them more money to save more money. Random.
Somebody asked me, I did a demo of benchmarks the other day, and somebody said, "Oh, do you have many companies, many TA leaders go, oh, I don't want to measure candidate experience because I don't want to know the answer." So, well, no. Well, yes, some, but
of course they would occasionally.
You've got to look at it. You've got to look at it differently, right? Candidate experience is a team. It's a team sport, right? We don't. Recruiters don't own it. We probably own the strategy, and we should be policing it and managing it. But it's a team sport, and what we're doing with benchmarks is elevating the TA recruiters, whoever it is, the TA function. We're elevating the level of conversation they can have with hiring managers to something completely different to what they've done before, which is what you're trying to do as well. But it changes that mindset of, these guys aren't transactional, these guys are strategic. And that's where we need to get to, really. Because, and that just brings so much more, because it's more, being seen as strategic and doing strategic stuff is much more fun for recruiters. They stay in the industry longer, they stay in the company longer. You lose recruiters when it just becomes boring and it's transactional, and you don't get to influence and coach.
They're disrespected. Their time's wasted. They're spending time rebooking interviews because the manager cancels last minute because they don't get the impact. They don't understand. But you start telling them what the impact is, they stop that behavior. But the thing is, I felt like also I needed to write a book for the other side. I've written the Robot Proof Recruiter. It basically says the same way, a lot more detailed because it's for recruiters. But they're like pushing against a wall. And I'm now saying, well, here's my book, give it to your managers. And you're saying, here's some data to talk management speak. It's a little bit of a new, I'm quite excited to see what impact both our different tacks on it have. So we shall see. Now, I think we're at time. Well done on staying awake past your bedtime. Proud of you. You don't really go to bed that early, do you?
Sometimes.
You're not that old.
Sometimes.
If people want to get in touch with you, LinkedIn, is that the easiest?
I live on LinkedIn. When I'm not on Facebook posting pictures of me on the sun lounger, which is once or twice or 1 or 2 days a year. You made it sound like I'm always on holiday.
Always on holiday. I don't even think I've had a holiday this year. I'm quite jealous every time I see someone's having a holiday, because I've been writing, I've been book writing, so usually I tack it on a piece of work, and I've just been so busy book writing. So
yeah, LinkedIn. I'm living on LinkedIn.
Brilliant. Well, I shall add links as well. Thank you so much. What a fun conversation. Even with your pilot.
How do I get a copy of your book over here?
Maybe not Booktopia, but everywhere else.
Okay.
Just the usual places. Yeah. By the way, please don't think anybody that you're going to make me rich by buying this. If it's currently £15 on Amazon, that means Amazon gets £7.50 and I get 75p. I just would like to highlight that point. I've had a few people like, you're plugging your book a lot. It's like, yeah, not to get rich.
Wow,
you didn't know that? Oh yeah, no. So 50%. But the thing is that they show it to people as well. So it's like my royalties are 50%, but at the same time you're like, So I'd make £2 if you bought it from Wiley directly at full price.
Okay.
But
yeah,
then it's like, well, you see it, whereas on Amazon they show it. So you buy another recruitment book, or someone buys a Robot Proof Recruiter and it'll show this one, or vice versa. So that's why. But it was just funny because somebody went, "Can you send me a copy?" I'm like, I really can't, because I'm earning 75p. The postage to Australia is 15.
I lose 75p, and then I've got the postage on top.
Yeah, £15 to send it to Australia.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I couldn't get over how much it's gone up in price from the last one that I sent out. It was like, blooming heck. Should have just stuck them in a suitcase and come for a trip.
I know, yeah. Actually, I can bring some back. I'm coming back at Christmas, so I can bring a suitcase back if you want.
No, don't be silly. Oh. Just you can buy it in Australia and not pay postage. Right. Anyway, thank you, Steve.
Lovely to chat.